Morning, everybody. Okay, thank you. It was very long indeed. I thought it was an abstract of that long profile. Well, now you know a lot about myself, more than my wife probably. So, morning, everybody. Again, good night for my time zone, and it's about 1 a.m. back in Europe. So I apologize in advance if I'm not completely on the spot. I apologize for my eyes. I've been traveling yesterday. I arrived. I thought the jet lag was fine. I text my wife, everything is fine. 5 minutes later, I crashed on the bed, and I slept for 4 hours. Tonight, I couldn't sleep more than half an hour. So you may be wondering why I'm telling you that. It's my problem. Yeah, but then I will look to this topic in a while when we'll talk about something that happens when you investigate. I hope you can hear me. I ask to use this one because I cannot stand still behind the podium. I'm Italian, so I'm using very much my hands when I speak. Now the next challenge will be to understand what I have to click. It was the wrong one, right? Yeah, okay. So, as Simon kindly introduced, I work for GE, General Electric. General Electric is a big company. You may know it. If you don't know it, I may tell you that General Electric was behind the light bulb. Actually, it was founded by Thomas Edison back in the 19th century. And so the light bulb is from General Electric. The first jet engine, the first turbine on a jet in the 40s was from General Electric. And then when we investigate accident, when we have an accident, very often our guys go to the hospital, they do some MRI, magnetic resonance imaging test. The first one was done by General Electric Healthcare back in the 70s. So this tells how the scope of the company is very broad and various. Back again, try if it works. Yeah, I do it. Right, good. This gentleman was our former CEO, now is the chairman of the board. General Electric is very much, how to say, manufacturing company, but 2 years ago decided, or better smell the business, going to the digital direction, quite late to be honest, but now they are there, and the target was to become the digital leader, the digital industrialization leader in the business. This means that in 2 years we moved at speed light to change the core business of the company. We still manufacture, we still work on heavy industry, we still do healthcare, but the very target is to become digital. This pushes everything to the next level, to warp velocity, to the speed of light. And this changes the environment you work in, really at the same speed. It's quite a difficult situation for most of the people, so you face a lot of changes, but it's exciting, but it has impact, like everything, on what the people do. Okay, again, the variety of business that we cover is immense, but we decided to become digital. In 2 years, we became the #1 digital industrialization company in the world. So you can imagine what does it mean in terms of performance, in terms of pressure, in terms of organizing, reorganizing, setting, restructuring is huge. Behind all of this, like in all companies, there is definitely a sort of underlying sense of optimism. The management think that things go right because the systems are very well designed, very well maintained. Everything is foreseen and designed in advance. The procedures are always correct, complete, ready for every occasion. And the people always behave as they are expected to do, or as they are told to do. And this is clearly optimism. It doesn't always work. Sometimes we are too much optimist. So when something goes wrong, all that optimism that we have just seen, of course, translate in expectation from the management, in pressure, in a lot of questions that are falling on the shoulder of normally of all of us, EHS people. So when something goes wrong, Your manager, I don't know who your manager is. My manager is an operational executive. So I do not report to EHS, I report to the operation, to the guys who are paying the bill at the end of the month, are paying the salary, are getting the cash from the customer. Those guys who are looking at figures, at dollars, euro, wherever you work in. So these guys, when something goes wrong, of course they are not happy. Nobody is happy. But they immediately ask you when the report will be completed. When the report will be completed, I need a bit of time to investigate. There are people doing it. There are things to be clarified. And we identify the root cause 5 minutes after the accident. The manager has to report to the CEO and needs to tell what is the root cause, because they want to fix the issue clearly. Nobody wants to leave things broken. And they want to know the root cause because now they are quite educated. They know that there is a root cause very often behind an accident. Very often, always, obviously. So they want to know it 5 minutes after. They ask you to send immediately your best guy to make a thorough investigation, evaluate what happens, right? Take care of all the factors. And also they want to know what visible management action they have to take, because they are accountable for the performance, for the safety of our company. Their boss, if they have a boss above them, will be the one nailing them to the wall, asking for action, visible action. We have an ethical society looking after the way the executive behave. Right. And very often, if they are not mature enough, the first thing they ask you is if the guy has been removed from site, has been sent off, the guy who made a mistake, obviously, the guy who made something wrong. So this could be a double-blade question. They may ask if you send him out because they want him to be out, and this is very bad, or if they ask because they know that sometimes the guy who made a mistake is the first to be fired, and they know that it's wrong, so they ask you if you have somehow corrected this issue. However, you can imagine how much pressure it comes when something goes wrong. Every boss wants to know what to do, what went wrong. Right. It's not that easy. It's not so straightforward to get the answer they want. Clearly, James Reason was, actually still is, an high-told professor of let's say human factors and behavioral science at the Manchester University. He's quite well known. He's writing for the HSE and is thinking leader of the HSE from many point of view in UK. He states that inevitably there are problems, and the primary source of data, once you have a problem, are the accident reports. Unfortunately, not only the accident reports are mostly concerned with giving blame, they also tell a story which may not be the truth. Whatever investigator you send, the better investigator you can find around and you send to investigate an event will come with his own way to say things. The people who will witness and tell him things will tell him what they believe happened, what they have seen maybe in the best case, but not always what you see is what happens, right? So even if it is prepared by a very open-minded and well-prepared investigator, the report itself is just, how to say, digitalization of a process of thinking, which does not automatically translate to a true report. Right. And of course there are very often, always, way less information than what is available in the reality. When something happens, there are plenty of events around that are not being reported, translated in the accident investigation report. The most important thing is that disasters are very, very, very rarely the product of a single human error. There is not always one error. Well, there is always not only one error. Sorry if I'm mixing up the words. I mean, there is always more than one thing causing the accident to happen. I invite you to stop me at any time if I'm not clear, if I'm not explaining in the proper English. Simon was kindly talking about the languages. I don't know what language I'm speaking today. It's a bit of mix, so again, ask any question whenever you don't understand what I'm saying. Right, so the big issue that we have when we carry out an investigation is to understand the difference between what we have in a procedure normally and what we have in practice. What happens in practice. So basically, when we talk about procedure is exactly what we expect to happen. So we write, the managers, the supervisor, the people who are in charge of looking after a task, they write on a paper what they expect to happen. So it's always very well done. Normally, it's done by engineers. Engineers are precise, they are very careful, they consider all the possible events. Right, so they write basically a straight line. Everything shall go according to the line. Practice is slightly different. When people try to put in practice the procedure, right, it's not exactly the straight line that we have at the beginning. So it's a sort of curve, it's a sort of whatever you call it, going way different from the practice. Do you always recognize that difference? I don't. Normally, no. If I'm a supervisor, if I'm a manager, if I'm the engineer who wrote the procedure, I go out and I mostly see my procedure going perfectly well. People more or less doing what I have in mind. Because I see it every day, because I see many things going on, and I don't really recognize what is changing. But things change. At some point, you have an accident, you have something going wrong. Why? Theoretically, you have your procedure. It's perfect. It's telling you everything. You cannot mistake. That's easy, straightforward. Just do what is written. The practice, we call it, the difference between the procedure and the practice is what we call drift. So it's every minute, every second way to get away from the straight line. Till when something happens. There are a number of hidden conditions, the things that we do not see when we look at the reality. Things which have been happening before, which are happening behind the scene that you don't see. So the so-called hidden conditions are the unsafe conditions, are the management system, are what is around the procedure that you wrote and you are expecting to go straight. All these hidden conditions accumulate one over the other, over the years, over the second, the minutes, the days, the months, the years, of the age of a plant, the age of an industry, the age of an activity. Once the accumulation goes up enough to cross the curve of the drift, so the way you went away from the procedure, then you have the clash, the accident, the red thing. So you have a sort of margin for error as long as you don't get too much away from the procedure and as long as not so many hidden things are happening. But not always the margin is enough, because we work with people. People may err, may mistake. When they do something wrong, not because they are just deviating from the procedure as a standard, but because they do mistake, they do something unexpected, unpredictable, then you have an anticipation of the accident. The accident happened far below. When you have a violation on top of that, when they purposely do something wrong for some reason that we have to talk about later on, then it happens even earlier. So I think this is the key graph that helps directing the focus of our investigation. We don't even like to call it accident investigation anymore. The new wave is to call it event analysis. It's not actually an investigation done by the authority. We analyze the event because we want to understand what happens. We want to see what is behind it. We are not just investigating who has made something wrong. It's not my point. I want to know what happened, not who made something wrong. Right. This is a well-known pyramid, very controversial. We all have our own opinion about the distribution, the truth behind the pyramid. But one thing is sort of not arguable. We have a limited number of accidents, and at the bottom you have a number, unlimited almost number of minor events, which can be near misses in the best case. Out of those near misses, we should be able to recognize what are the potentially severe events. This is a key point to help us lead in the direction of our business, the action that we have to take to improve our performance. Potentially severe events are, well, not that different from near miss, but you need to be able to pick the ones who may have led to a tragedy, to a significant, severe event, whatever name you give in your hierarchy of bad things happening in your company. So typically, if I drop this table by mistake, right, it's not good, will not be polite, not be appreciated by the hotel and by nobody else, but I do not see a significant event behind, a potentially significant event behind it. If I drop the same table when somebody is working there, and for good luck he doesn't get injured, then it's a different issue. I could have killed him, even with this small thing. So recognizing the difference is quite important. I know that most of the company are already working on this direction, and it's a key point. It's just a reminder, right? A near miss during an high-risk operation, a fall from height causing only a minor injury. If you fall from, well, actually, I investigated an accident quite recently. A person fell from 27 meters and is still alive, able to talk about what happened, because he was bouncing from one pipework to the other till landing at 16 meters platform. So that one is definitely an extremely potentially severe event. He didn't die, he was injured, so it was even a very bad event. But we have to investigate, because he could have died clearly, right? Okay, once you start your event analysis, you have to work on a sort of plan. The first part is the collection of the information. The second one is the analysis of the information that you have been collecting. And the third one is to define what action needs to be taken to avoid the reoccurrence, which is ultimately the target for everybody. A very helpful tool is to define, try to draw a timeline of what happened. The timeline is very important. The analysis of the timeline tells you a lot of things that helps you to find out those hidden conditions that we have seen in the graph before. So it's very easy when something happened, right? Investigate the fall from height. The guy was not wearing his harness in the proper way, in the proper way. He didn't wear the harness. A fact, it's a very immediate cause, it was there. The guy was not complying with the permit to work system, is a fact, it happened right now, today. Easy to spot. But there are a number of things which go back to maybe 3 months ago, maybe 1 year ago, maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Who was designing that plant in that way? Who was defining that the guy was supposed to work at 27 meters out of the platform? Was he willing to fall? Was he willing to go there and do that kind of work there? Or there was somebody designing for that? So when you collect information, you always have to deal with the very poor relation between the analysis that you are doing and the tools that you are using. Very often you have a form, pre-designed form, asking for direct causes, root causes, place of the event, condition, weather condition, these kind of things which are very directed to what happened that very day at the scene of the event. They are not really helping you to go back or to go around and see what is happening, what is conditioning the situation around. right? The way you lead your analysis, the way you do your investigation will really dictate the culture that you create around you. And to some extent the other way around, the culture of your company, the way you develop your investigator, your event analyzer, is a consequence of the culture that you have in the company. If you have a person which is very inquisitive, asking very strong questions, already finger pointing to the potential wrong thing, you are closing your door to the investigation. If you have somebody doing that who has a bit of background of psychology, behavioral science, proper way to deal with people, then you may have more opportunity to get the truth. Of course, you have to be open and state that there are things that you don't know. When you finalize your report, there are plenty of things that are still unknown, completely unknown, and it will be a shame to hide the fact that there are portions of the reality that are completely dark today. We have to make light on that. And we don't have 10 years time for investigating. We have a limited time. Of course, you have to invest in training to make sure that the people that are doing the investigation know the right thing, the right way to do, the right techniques. There is no better tool, no best tool for doing an investigation. I believe all companies have their own one, which is working pretty well or pretty bad, depending, but there is no perfect one. I don't have any magic wand to create the right tool which is telling us how to do it. It's a lot of soft skills and a lot of technical skills at the same time. So it's quite a difficult thing to manage. The very important point is when you analyze an event, when you put rubbish in, you get rubbish out. So the quality of the information and the fact that you collect is key to get a proper result. An important thing is try to build the story and the bigger picture of what happened, not just the very fact leading to the event, but what is behind and, let's say, the broad picture behind. So here we go. The main question I'm normally asking myself is, who is designing the facilities? Who is choosing the equipment? Who is dictating the operational time? Who is defining the management procedures? And who is eventually getting injured? So I think this set of questions are telling us two main things. The first one, you get it probably from the pronouns that you see there. All those pronouns are related to what? People. It's all about people. This is my strong belief. When something happens, you can dig, you can do whatever you want, technically investigate and analyze whatever. There is always a person at the very top of the chain when you go back enough. It's always about people. All those guys who are doing that are people. Ultimately, the one who is being injured is a person, whatever kind of event we are talking about when you have injuries, clearly. Sorry. The second big point from my point of view here is we normally, when there is an investigation going on, we normally are asked to go deep and look down and deep. And this takes very much to the person being injured. If you look down and deep from your management point of view, you focus on the person who got the injury, who probably made the mistake, who probably made the wrong thing triggering the event. But the very true, you get it if you look up and broader. Because all those guys answering to that who question, they are all some 2, 3, 4, 10 levels above the guy who got injured. So look up and broad. Don't stop looking down and deep. That's still important, very important. But don't keep down only. Look up and broad. So accidents are normally the unexpected combination of normal performance variability, very much in line with the graph they have seen before. And the front-end workers are very, very rarely the cause of the events. They are the one who triggers the accumulation of hidden condition we have seen before. There was a fault in the design 15 years ago. There was a number of times when this was recognized as an issue in the last 10 years. There was a number of times when this issue was brought to the upper management. There was a number of times when this issue was discussed in the leadership meeting room, and it was decided not to take action because of budget, money, or to postpone the action for the same reason. You help me with the time when it's good, right? And eventually, we have a number of times when we recognize that it could be triggering an event, and we don't do the right thing till when the event happened because somebody just forget to, I don't know, discharge pressure from a system he was supposed to do it. Because maybe he was flying from Europe and he was having some jet lag and he was losing his mind. It was a lapse, right? He forgot to do the right thing. Without all those hidden conditions before, the faulty design, the missed opportunity to make modification, whatever, his lapse would have not led to the severe consequence that we are investigating now. So again, up and broad. So normally when we investigate, we look after premises, plant, procedure, and people, which are very much behind the duty of care principles, which are the basis of most legislation on health and safety, which is a safe place of work, safe planted equipment, safe system of work, and eventually competent employees. Competent employees, right? Maybe some of you have been listening, reading about some sort of dispute between the behavioral safety and now the new HOP, human and organizational performance way of thinking about safety. I believe the two things go together, but again, if you think about the traditional behavioral safety approach to go out with a checklist and check what the people are doing, if they are doing right or wrong. I don't know who of you guys is doing behavioral safety checklist visit on your company. I know plenty of people who are still doing, and I'm always asking them, so you do it maybe 20 times a month with the front-end employee. How often do you go with your checklist in the boardroom and observe what the management is doing? How often do you see the CEO talking about safety and saying, yeah, okay, maybe next month, or talking about safety and say, okay, no money this year, or talking about safety and saying, all right, the performance is very bad, we have to change that guy, right? This is what I would expect to be monitored if I want to look up and broad. Because competent employees is often misunderstood, and it's a misleading concept. It's always looking at the front-end guy, trained, qualified, experienced, right? Mostly easy to get. How do we check that the guy pushing the button in the bottom room is competent from that point of view? It's not because he's a CEO that he knows how to do the right thing. I hope so, but not always. So again, it's all about people here. And when you look at planning, communication, risk assessment, competence, inspection, reporting, investigation, reviewing, whatever you have in that list, there are a number of things like control, so roles and responsibilities, defining the way you supervise, communication, writing and verbal, written and verbal communication, reports, records, training. All those things are underlying hidden factors on the very back end on the graph that we have seen at the beginning, right? If we go to the good old HSE in the UK and James Reason work with them, they were developing this classification of human failures is well known, so I will not dedicate too much time on that. But the most important thing is that the split between errors and violation. Errors are happening, let me say, with good intention, are out of your control to some extent. Violation happens when you purposely do something that you know is wrong. The reason why you do is multiple. It could be a routine violation. You are doing since ever, and nobody's telling you it's wrong. You know it's wrong, but nobody is correcting you. Your supervisor at times is even encouraging you because you are doing quicker. You are delivering way earlier than the other guys who are following the traditional path. Good. There are situational violations. You have an urgent delivery. You don't have time to get the right tools. You just unload it with whatever forklift you have at hand, so that you release the lorry, you get your product in the warehouse, and off you go. You violate when something happens. That's a violation. And then there are exceptional violations. This happens when an emergency happens, when you have a fire. Nobody will take care if you're going out of an handrail without a harness. You have to get safe, and you are violating, but it's an exceptional situation. Typical case, confined space, fatalities. The first guy in confined space fall down, the watcher see his friends falling down in the confined space, get in without proper devices, without proper plan, fall in the confined space as well. So this is an exceptional violation. He do it for good purpose, but he's violating the basic rule to stay alive. Right. This is very important, beside of the academic aspects and the psychological aspects of what is behind that. All right, so I forgot to mention a couple of things. The errors which happens behind of your control. When I'm doing a mistake today, because I'm half asleep and I push the wrong button, it's clearly a lapse. It's something that I'm not doing intentionally. There is very little room for controlling which button I'm pushing here. So you can imagine this is just a clicker. If it was the button for the nuclear bomb that Trump or the North Korean guys are treating each other, then it could be a big issue. I would not like that those guys are flying over without having proper rest and dealing with the nuclear bomb, right? Okay. So when you have to analyze the outcomes, it's very important. Human errors happens, and disciplining of human errors is the only wrong thing that you can do. You can design for safe execution of work, avoiding human errors. That's clear. That's the reason why we have, for example, a big red emergency button and a very small green activating button on the same machinery. When you have to push in emergency, you go for the red big one so that you can stop the machine safely. When you have to activate, you have to be more careful and get the right small one, so you have to focus on that. That's a way of designing for safety and avoiding errors. Discipline is the wrong way. When you have an intentional violation, of course, discipline is one of the tools in your box, as long as you have the broad picture of what happens. I'm the first to say, okay, right, it's correct to suspend a worker who made something intentionally, he violated the rules, but never stop there. See why he was doing. Was his manager, his supervisor, pushing him to be fast, to be delivering earlier than the expectation? Maybe this guy was always getting a pat on his shoulder. Well done, mate, because he was 5 minutes early, because he was taking a shortcut instead of doing the right walkway. Who designed the walkway in the plant? Did he consider the time that they have available for the coffee break? If you have to follow the safe path and go for the coffee break, your 10 minutes coffee break get limited to 3 minutes. So you probably take a shortcut. So the guy who designed either the path or the time of the breaks should be in the picture, together with the guy who took deliberately the decision to cross through the shortcut. That's the big issue when we investigate, if we want to solve the problem. Otherwise, we would only have a disciplinary punishment of an exemplary guy, and doesn't really help. So we know what happened and who did it. What we really need to understand is what the lesson that the leadership should learn. What should we learn, and what is important for us to know as a EHS professional? What improvement action we need to communicate to the leadership for getting it implemented and achieving the improvement? So, and educate leaders who would ask questions like, are the people okay? Is the site facility now safe and stable? Tell me the story of what happened. What could have happened in a worst case scenario? And what are the factors leading to this event? What worked well? Maybe something worked well. We are still alive. What did not work, obviously? And where else could be this problem happening in the other plants which are similar to ours? What else should I know? What should I learn from these events? Of course, the timeline of this question should be as described there. So the first question immediately after the event, and later on after the investigation, the lower questions. Of course, once we have the events, a big deal is to, once we have analyzed the events, a big deal is to collect the information and make the information available. Once again, no magic tool. I mention one which is available, one of the many available. That's a GE one. It was designed by GE and was spin off as an independent company maybe 10 years ago. The name is GemSuite, you may know it or not. I'm not here to advertising it. Anyway, it's an IT tool allowing to record all the possible way to classify the event. You can record the kind of accident, the type of work, the divide by business, by location, by plant, by department, whatever. You have infinite way to record. It helps because it's quite well, how to say, assembled, quite well organized. It helps because it is on a network, so you share the information between all your plants in the company. You can grant access to your contractors, to your partners, so it's pretty good. You can analyze the information whenever you want, extracting by date, by person, by activity, by kind of accident, kind of injury, whatever. You can do all kind of report. You can manage training out of that. It's even too much. If I can criticize it a bit, it's too much, too heavy. The good thing is that now, today, we have plenty of technology that can help us. This tool, GemSuite, runs on my smartphone, on my tablet, on my laptop, everywhere. I can connect remotely. I can do everything. If I'm out on the field, the supervisor who is out on the field, he can record immediately an inspection or whatever on his smartphone and get it automatically consolidated globally, so that from Switzerland I can check what my guy in Kuala Lumpur is being reporting almost in real time. So it's very good from that point of view. You can add pictures, you can add whatever you want, what kind of additional information you can attach, any kind of file. So leveraging on IT is probably the right way to go forward. The next step we are adapting is the smart Google, the smart glasses, like the Google glasses, something like that. With this kind of now cheap stuff, you can have people traveling. Without having people traveling, you can have the frontline guys, which are based on the premises, doing the investigation on your behalf, and you remotely see what they see, listen what they are hearing. It's very, very good. I didn't thought it was working good. We have been experimenting in the last few months. It's fine. I can run audit from my office in Baden on a premises, as long as you have a good internet connection on a premises wherever it is located globally. So it's very much a way forward, one of the possible way forward. So you can help somebody who is not maybe experienced enough or senior enough to lead the investigation. And also when this guy is going around, the guys who is talking with, his manager, for example, knows that he's not only talking to his reports, but also with the senior management. So he will probably think about what he's saying. Could be good, could be bad. It's always a matter of soft skills that we have to have, but it's a good tool, right? Yes, it's digital. It's getting digital. On the left is what a power plant used to be in the past. I'm in the power plant business. That's why I use power plant as an example. And what a power plant is today in terms of digitalization and digital technology and signal. So that's it. The challenges are still working globally. My footprint is all over the globe. I have to work in the same way with Chinese as with Australian, as with German, Finnish, American. Not easy. Right, I forgot to mention at the beginning there was a puzzle tile with a magnifier that we were using to say, you look down and deep on the puzzle tile. The real important thing is to look at the final picture, putting together the tiles and see the puzzle. Thank you.